Welcome to another edition of The Local Show, our first edition this summer, you guys. Thanks for joining us here on Grassroots Community Network. Host and range of stations now. We are reaching out to our Facebook Live audience, our YouTube audience, and podcasts. So thanks for joining us, guys, where we feature inspirational locals now in our 16th year each week on The Local Show. Really excited to welcome a longtime friend of mine, longtime local, and we'll call a local legend and more, Michael Ferrara. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Eric. Thank
Mongo.
you. Yeah.
Mongo's
that
in the
was
house.
that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
well, we'll talk about Mongo a little bit.
Okay.
But we're going to go back a little farther even to Williamsville, New York.
Right, my
Were
hometown.
you born and raised in Williamsville?
Born in Buffalo, in the city.
Okay.
Then when I was 5, we moved to this farming community north of Buffalo.
Okay.
That became, by the time we left, was a nouveau riche suburb. So
No
part of the
kidding.
expansion. But
Was that time to go then at that point? Or
no,
that's
I
the way
I
it
tried to grow
evolved?
up. Yeah. But Buffalo, it's a great place to be from.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Well, we said that in Wisconsin.
Yeah. The
We've
weather.
had those same kind of winters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like real winter.
Yeah,
Like
and that,
cold.
so Denali is not that wild. 'Cause, it's yeah.
I know. Well, when you have a certain perspective, like growing up in that area of the country, and it's like super cold and it's humid, so you get
Right,
like that
yeah.
bone-chilling cold. Then you hear people around here talk about, oh God, that day was so cold up in the bowl, and you kind of snicker a
Right,
little
yeah,
bit.
exactly.
And you've been up Denali and some of the biggest peaks in the world
So
too.
Dave Hahn, I don't know if you know Dave. He writes for Outside
Yeah,
Magazine.
yeah, I've heard of Dave,
He's,
yeah.
our Everest and RMI guide. Is
Okay.
also at one point he may still be the American with the most Everest summits.
No,
He's from
kidding.
Buffalo.
He's from Buffalo. Do you know how many times he's summited
I
Everest?
do not.
Okay, but probably maybe double digits.
Oh yeah.
Seems like a lot of these guys know
Yeah,
10
probably
to 20
18,
times.
Yeah, something like that.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So
their
so
job.
moving on, how did you end up you ended up in Aspen in the late 70s, right?
Right.
What
so
was that story
I was going to go to law school, decided it wasn't right for me, and decided recession, Rust Belt wasn't right. I just started to ski, and so I packed up and moved to Denver.
Okay.
Was working in Denver for Motorola, and took a ski trip out here for a weekend to visit my ex-wife's friends, saw the valley, and went, oh my goodness gracious.
This is
And came up with this plan for Motorola. I flew back to Chicago, told them that Western Colorado, Southern Wyoming, and Eastern Utah were a contiguous economic zone based on energy, ranching, and recreation, and should have their own sales territory and sales manager who was based in Aspen. And
so you kind of created the position basically for the region,
right.
and sold them on that need.
And they bought it, and next thing I know,
And they did, and then you're here.
I moved here and had salesmen stretched out, and there was some stuff that happened, and now I'm here.
Wow.
You know?
And then you would go on. Well, that's an interesting. How did you transition then? Ultimately, like, did you go right to ski patrol after
No,
that?
I was
or?
I was I was Motorola Salesman of the Year. I was.
Oh, wow.
But the patrol director at Vail was also their communications director.
Okay.
The president of Motorola and son of the founder has a house there and would stop and visit him. So I said, no one's handling this account but me, and we became personal friends. And I looked at his life of ski patrol in the winter and fishing guide in the summer,
Oh, nice.
and I went,
Okay.
I just got to give it a try.
Couldn't hurt. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a crazy idea, but
what a great idea though, right? Because
It
that
turns
would
out
lead
now.
into
friends who were like, this is stupid. I can't believe you're doing this.
Yeah.
Now at this point in our lives are going, how did you know?
like
I
good
didn't.
call.
I didn't. I had no idea.
Wasn't it more like for me, more like following your heart? Like it was like this charted plan and diagrammed out, like carefully plotted thing. It was more just follow your heart, and then you fall into that mountain
Right.
lifestyle.
Joseph Campbell has a saying that follow your bliss and doors will open for you where they wouldn't for someone else.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's been a big. Now you have to look at the door and be willing to open it, but it's worked for me for whatever.
And then you'd go on to ski patrol, and you served with the local ski patrol for how long?
About 30 years, then a few in Utah.
Wow.
And that's how I got. So when I became a patrolman, I got into first aid.
Okay.
Really liked first aid, and I'd
Okay.
always been a science nerd. And so I became an EMT, and then a paramedic, and then there was just a place for paramedic with basic mountain skills, and that's what took me on some of these to the Arctic and Denali and things like that. So,
And we're going to take a break in just a second here, Michael. But you had lived in the Arctic you lived there for a while, right?
a little over a year.
A little over a year. Just briefly, what's that like? Because that's
Lord.
one of the craziest things that I read in your bio. is living in
So we were in just on the north side of the Brooks Range, the base of Adigan Pass.
Okay.
There was a repair project on the pipeline. So there were 400 of us living in trailers,
Okay.
work trailers, out on the Arctic plain. Magnificent place. The eastern boundary of the camp was the western boundary of Anwar.
Oh, wow.
So we could, our time off, we would go wander around in Anwar.
Incredible.
It was brilliantly.
Wow. Was that
beautiful.
Alyeska pipeline?
Yes.
That you were working? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just such a, grizzlies, the porcupine caribou herd, Dall sheep, Arctic wolves, muskox, ravens. It's
Wow. Full on.
But there's not a lot of culture.
Right. You can't
400 working
can't
guys
just go to the
living in
music
trailers.
tent or the Institute
Yeah.
to see Madeline Albright.
And of
speak.
course, in December it's dark
right.
and cold.
But that sounds like a very hearty, very fulfilling.
Good place for a guy from Buffalo or Wisconsin.
Right, there you go. Go to a warmer climate.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to take a quick break, Michael. Rehydrate.
Okay.
Get ready for the main body of the show, and we're going to be talking about nature bathing, among other things.
Right.
Do you guys have your soap and your shampoo?
Right.
We're going to take a quick break, our early break of the show, guys. I do want to thank our generous underwriters this summer for making our summer series June through September happen. We have the Aspen Square, Klug Properties, Independence Pass Foundation, Pitkin County Landfill, Sundog Athletics. We're going to go to a quick break. Thanks to our sponsors. Just make sure I got them all. Yep, first time for the season, got them. And we'll be back in 2 minutes with Michael Ferrara. He's been written up in several magazines, including Outside with a feature article, on the Today Show with his dog Lotse. And he's got a lot to share with us, you guys, and how he's helping people in a very meaningful way out in the great outdoors. So don't go away. We're back here on the local show. Thanks for sticking with us here on Grassroots Community Network and Facebook Live. Thanks for watching us, you guys. And joined by Michael Ferrara, who's a longtime Aspen Skiing Company patroller, rescuer, mountaineer, man about the Arctic Circle.
Cop for a while, deputy sheriff.
That's right. Worked for
Coroner.
the Sheriff's Department for a while. Coroner and assistant coroner.
Yeah, I was deputy coroner.
Were you working with Tom Grady at all, or after
I
Grady?
worked with Grady for quite some time.
Grady's a longtime friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, since the Copper Horse days.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was the patrol director when I was a deputy.
Okay.
Great, a terrific guy. I like.
Okay, so Michael, you've seen a lot, to say the very least, including some pretty gruesome accidents. And I remember back in 2001 when the private plane crash happened, obviously near the Aspen airport. 18 people, I believe, were killed.
Yes.
And from friends of mine who were also fire department and other first responders, couldn't really even describe that, or want to describe it. And things like that are just, I can't imagine, but heard some of the language and descriptions from something like that. And then a mutual friend of ours, I knew Corey Bretman. We had actually mutually dated, not at the same time, but
Right.
Charlotte Fox. So we were just one of Fox's men.
Right, yeah.
We'll call him. And I
Right.
knew Corey. And it was really when Corey died, I believe when he was skiing Powerline. Off the back of Aspen Mountain.
Yeah, and
And he died in an avalanche.
Pandora's.
That it was kind of almost like the last straw, it seemed like, for you, in terms of like just strings and strings of tragedies and all these things. And can you talk a little bit about that? Kind of the
It was the. I had been struggling since 2006 with what we now call cumulative incident stress disorder.
Okay.
So not one specific incident,
Right.
but a constant drip of significant incidents over a career of 20, 25 years. Later in this, I was to find out that twice as many first responders each year take their own lives as die in the line of duty.
Oh, wow.
And that's what has really stimulated the presentations I do in that. So I was struggling with it. Things got pretty bad. I have had a slew of orthopedic injuries and became addicted to opiates as a self-medication.
Okay.
I work my 50, 60 hours, and when I get off, I'll just take a couple Percocet because it relieves my physical as well as my mental and emotional pain.
Sure.
A bad treatment plan, all in all.
That's the self-medicating
Like the opiates
plan.
itself, all of that.
Yeah.
But
it works for the moment, perhaps, right?
Right, but that's the problem.
Because then you can go
In
escape.
4 hours you escape,
Right.
but you come back in,
And then
and
it's
pretty
worse.
soon the
Yeah.
dependency, the fear. Now, when you're getting straight to go back to work, you're going through this emotional withdrawal. It's just bad. It's terrible.
So it became the cycle or the spiral, and then you kind of.
So I was struggling with that, and then Corey's death really sort of sent me over the edge.
Yeah.
I had a couple more friends die, and then on the first Sunday in February, I had a SIDS death, and I won't get into the whole thing, but it was the final straw.
Yeah.
And I just went into this spiral, and eventually had a breakdown, and got the help that I needed. And
One of the places was down in Carbondale, correct?
Yes, Jaywalkers is where I did my outpatient drug therapy.
Okay. Awesome.
And well, this is kind of interesting because I initially get assigned to a psychiatrist here who spends 20 minutes or an hour talking about himself, diagnoses me with an addiction issue, no PSD, and writes me a script for 20 Xanax.
Oh, great.
Luckily, my sister worked for the university, for the School of Medicine. She ran the Given Institute. So she had contacts in the Department of Psychiatry, and they guided me to a PTSD guy at the University in Denver.
Right.
And that's where I started to make recovery with the PTSD. And then Jaywalkers in Carbondale is where I did my drug therapy. And that's one of the issues in this, that there's virtually no place for an individual who's suffering to go.
Right.
And I ended up having to put my own program together. And that was part of what I'm preaching. I'm sort of an evangelist now. I'm out there preaching.
Do you say hallelujah?
The gospel, about cumulative incident stress disorder in civilian rescuers. And so that's one of the things that I preach in there. The system has to be easily accessible. It has to be appropriate. You don't go to a urologist for your knee injury. They're both doctors, but there's certain
Right.
things. So through that, I started to feel like I was not alone. More people were having this problem than I was.
Okay.
And the outside, I talked to outside, and they wanted to profile this story. And so they did the article. And when the article came out, I got hundreds of contacts from people. Your story is my story. Your story is my husband's story. All of these people are coming from everywhere.
Wow.
Telling me, you're right, it's going on out here.
Yeah.
And then I started doing the presentations. Wilderness Medical Society called me up and asked me to do. And out of the audience, a half a dozen people come up with their stories.
Unbelievable.
And so every place I go now to do one of these, people are coming up. I mean, and then you add that to twice as many first responders will take their own lives as will die in the line of duty. And you go, okay, there's something's wrong here. And for a lot of reasons, we're not addressing it.
Well, what's incredible reading the Outside Magazine article is that over 24 million Americans are affected with PTSD. So you really, you came forward almost like a pioneer because you spoke about it, and then you spoke in the media, and then inspired all these other people to kind of come forward or maybe lower their fear level or their apprehension, to where they come forward, they say, hey, you know, we'd love to get that help too, or we went through this. And then you kind of developed a methodology, because you literally were like, again, self-medicating, but this time in the outdoors.
Right, and so yeah, part of that, you know, these people are coming out of the woodwork to, you know, to let me know that this problem exists, and you know, we're just not dealing with it. One woman from Harvard said to me, I was at the tsunami, I was in Bosnia, I've been all these places, and I'm fine. I came back from Haiti, I'm a wreck. And I won't go into, we figured out what it wrong, but she said, your article gave me permission to admit what was going on with me. You be willing to stand out like that gave me permission and recognize and talk about what was going on. And I thought that was cool. Now, the bad thing is she went to her hospital and said, I have PTSD. And she was informed, physicians from this or that education do not get PTSD.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
more into that. But
So,
anyhow,
so finding the right professional is key.
and
Connecting with the outdoors.
so
and this,
in the midst of all of my troubles, I'm given this questionnaire to fill out, and I turn it in. I go, I stopped answering after the first page because every answer is yes. They went, this is not funny, Michael. This means you're completely depleted of adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin. All of this stuff in your head's been going on for so long, you've used up. So you are now on a no adrenaline diet. No skiing, no ski mountaineering, no ice climbing, none of this. And I just started Nordic skiing. I'm a classic skier, so I go out 3-4 hours a day Nordic skiing. Now, I had described to the shrinks that it was like the inside of my head was the inside of a giant black dome. And on that ceiling, we're constantly playing dozens and dozens of slideshows of just terrible, terrible things. And I couldn't stop them. They ran constantly. And every now and then a trigger would bring one to the forefront. And when that happens, your subconscious doesn't know that it's not happening right now. So it triggers all of those chemicals of adrenaline and depression and all that. So that was part of the struggle. So I take up this Nordic skiing, and after about 10 days, I call up the doc in Denver and go, they've stopped. He said, what? I said, the slideshows have stopped. He said, when? I said, I don't know, but they're not running. And so I kind of attributed this to the left-right EMDR of classic Nordic skiing and being in the out of doors. And with, let's say, my dog, but that's a...
Let's touch on EMDR, because that's part of the rhythmic movement,
Yes.
correct? Of Nordic skiing or walking or rollerblading.
Right. The concept being is that horror show lives in your right brain.
Okay.
By stimulating that left-right, and in therapy, they put a little buzzer in your hands, and they have you visualize a pleasant place.
Okay.
And that rhythmic thing brings the function of your brain back to center.
Okay.
And so I was the first attributing it to EMDR, but I was preaching it in my presentations as therapy. Get outdoors, exercise, rhythmic, low mental stress kind of things. And then, lo and behold, Florence Williams puts out her book. And I don't know, do we have those pictures of her book? And
I think we'll bring those up while we're talking.
okay.
So
Anyhow, Florence comes out with this book, and basically the concept is looking at fractals creates an alpha state in your brain, which is the rest state where recovery occurs.
okay.
Nature is made up of fractals.
Okay.
Going out in nature creates an alpha state. And then she supports it with a lot of scientific data to show this. And I think we talked about the nature bathing, the Japanese concept.
Shinroku, which they're doing in Japan, and this therapeutic benefit of being in the forest, literally connecting to nature, connecting to wildlife, and really reconnecting with Earth, Mother Earth. So there's the connection to nature. There's the rhythmic movement, or EMDR, going on.
And
so you've got this therapy, like this really as natural as it gets, as beautiful as it gets therapy.
And I'm trying to balance it now with maybe a little less of the EMDR and more of, I think we talked about this, that John Muir said, never go hiking in the mountains, you should saunter. And, there's a danger here that being the Aspenites that we are,
Right.
we'll start saying, well, I made this in 17 minutes yesterday. I can do it in 14 today.
Sauntering to 14 today.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a really fast, focused saunter.
I'm sauntering, but...
We call that hammering, too.
I know,
in bike
exactly.
racing.
And there is benefit, absolutely, endorphins and physical exercise. And
That can be part of it, but
a part of your overall program.
sauntering is...
But that walking for 30 minutes, 40 minutes in a quiet, and observing, looking at the fractals. I ran the Imogene Pass race several times, and then I finally drove up that Camp Bird Road, and I went, oh my gosh, this place is beautiful.
Right.
But when you're racing, you're not looking around. You're just, you're there, the guy ahead of you, But so I think it's crucial to get out there, to walk slowly, quietly, and take in the fractals. No cell phones. It's part of the therapy. Is
Yes.
The world, you are not that important that the world can't live without you for 1 hour.
Right.
And
The digital detox aspect, break away from the electronics. So part of it is disconnecting from the hectic world, the electronic world, the distracted digital world, and connecting on the other side to Earth.
Yep.
And nature and the rhythmic movements and all the benefits of exercise. And then you can share that with other people.
And for guys like us, it's the dog connection
And
too.
the dogs.
Because
unconditionally.
well, they're the bodhisattva.
Literally.
They're the incarnation of the godlike being.
Yeah.
And if you were in tune with that being, the beauty, the honesty, all of those traits that you get to absorb in that. But that's kind of advanced. I mean, you can be distracted.
You can talk to me about that. I'm all good with that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a 2 dog at a time guy.
So am I.
Not just 1, 2.
People are amazing.
I want one on each side for balance.
We just came down from Smuggler, and as a bicyclist, comes by, they go on a woe stay, and they're like, "That's incredible." I mean, no, it's sit and stay. Everybody should be doing this.
Right,
but
right.
anyhow,
They're so used to seeing trained or
dogs running amok.
untrained dogs in Aspen.
So
when
so
they're
anyhow,
really trained.
Yeah, I think, and it's being used in PTSD therapy. It's being
The
used
dog
in,
aspect?
No, the outdoor, the nature thing.
Okay.
PTSD in stress-related illnesses. It's being used. Hospitals, inner city hospitals, are putting in nature rooms. They're just screens,
that's awesome.
television screens of nature, because again, the person sitting there is observing fractals, which creates the alpha state. So after a terrible code, they can go in and sit in there.
So you're doing. So how does this manifest? You said you're a speaker. So you
So
go
now
speak.
I'm trying to put together, and this is, like I said, I have no plan for this. The speaking thing just happened to come out.
That's organic.
And then, oh my gosh, there is something going on. This comes out, and I don't want to become the guru of nature walks, but I think I want to start developing this for this community.
Yeah.
And as a therapy program for some people. And although we talked about it, as a guide, your goal should be that your client doesn't need you anymore.
Yeah.
So that's sort of I don't want long-term relationships. I'm trying to figure out some way to help people get introduced to this.
Right. Equip them, and then they can go off and be independent.
Here's the rules. No, you need to put that.
Right.
Just be guided into that state.
Yeah, you and I were talking before the show. Equip the birdies so they can fly out of the nest on their own, and that's what you're doing. You're really equipping them with the tools.
I'm starting to work right now with the Depression Center at the University of Colorado School of Medicine.
Nice.
On a therapy program of this.
Nice.
Like I said, I don't want to become the guru of nature walks, but I think this is real. I think it's appropriate. I think it's a good therapy, and I think it's got science behind it.
Well, it seems like you've always had that service to others in your life. Obviously for a long, long time. So it's along those lines, Mike. I want to give you love here. I mean, being service of others is really
when they first
a wonderful thing.
Let me go back to work after my breakdown. They said no heroics. You can't, no teaching.
You're on a heroics diet too.
So I ended up managing a home for developmentally adults in Glenwood, and of the 8 clients, only 1 had speech. They were too developmentally disabled to have speech processes.
Okay.
And I fell in love with it. I'm like, oh no, please.
So here's one more.
Not after 35 years of emergency services, now social services.
Another service
Yeah, I
arrow
know,
in the quiver.
Yeah, can't I want to be a realtor or a diamond broker?
You might be a marriage counselor
Oh,
next.
no, heavens no.
Don't go there. Yeah. Like, what do I know? I don't know. Maybe what do you know? Let's not get too crazy with services.
Yeah. I have a friend here who just retired as a lawyer, and she was doing some work for legal aid, and she said, I started getting into the divorce stuff, and I said, no, I can't. It's too insane.
Hey, we're down to just a minute, buddy, but I want to thank you. Do you have any closing thoughts for our viewers? And this has just been such a great show.
I think so much. I think we're showing the cover of the Outside magazine.
Yeah. All those
look
things
into that. Look at Florence Williams' books. I think part of what's happening to our community here is we have become so urban-centric in our community.
Yes.
20 years ago, we were all out there.
Right.
And we're becoming so wound up in our little urban environment here.
I agree.
That I think it's a good course for Aspen.
It's such a great topic and so relevant right now. I like to say now more than ever. It's just getting crazier and crazier. And Aspen's a little microcosm of the crazy society.
Absolutely.
So did you have fun on the show today?
I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I want to share some cookies I baked for you last night.
This is the only reason I came over here.
I knew this was really your hidden agenda.
I mean, I knew that
Erik's Organic Chocolate Chip.
Absolutely. And, faced previous guests of Klaus Obermeyer and, Olympians and, Gretchen Blyer and Chris Klug,
Well, I'm honored to have you. And those guys only did it for the cookies, too.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
So, you're right in there with those guys.
Exactly.
I hope you had fun today.
I did. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. And thank you guys for tuning in on our first show of the summer series. Check us out each week on Grassroots Community Network.